Following Dominic Raab's resignation, there's been a massive backlash as the official report completely undermined the civil servant's allegations against him, yet at the same time, they still won. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the channel that challenges the mainstream media and the political establishment, from the left-wing nutters to the globalist elite. Okay, so yesterday was an interesting day. We had Dominic Raab, the Justice Secretary and so-called Deputy Prime Minister. I don't understand why we still need Deputy Prime Ministers. Thank you, Nick Clegg, for that. And he resigned. Essentially, Rishi Sunak stayed quiet. He didn't really back him. He just allowed him to go away. And the civil servants won that argument. But the reports, we all read the report now. The media read the report, and we discovered the main allegations against Dominic Raab, well, wasn't really true, including him throwing things around or essentially like aggressively attacking them or whatever they claimed he did. He was simply demanding them, had demands to do their jobs properly, and apparently that is too politically incorrect these days. You can't do that anymore because civil servants are a bunch of flowers. So, considering that this used to be a norm, if you didn't do your job properly, especially on behalf of, obviously, the ministers like Dominic Raab. I'm not even a big fan of Dominic Raab, for the record, but you know that in these government departments, a lot of senior civil servants, let's just say, are massive obstacles, and they keep delaying and blocking your policy moves and everything else. So I can imagine you get frustrated as a minister because you're under pressure from your party, from the voters, from the people you're trying to serve. And obviously this happens. So we've all seen the letter he sent to the Prime Minister yesterday to resign. In the letter, and obviously the interviews they did afterwards, he actually decided to fight back, which is good. He didn't completely surrender. He said, while I feel duty-bound to accept the outcome of the inquiry, it dismissed all but two of the claims leveled against me. I also believe that its adverse findings are flawed, and of course, it sets a dangerous precedent for the conduct of good government. First, ministers must be able to exercise direct oversight with respect to senior officials over critical negotiations conducted on behalf of the British people. Otherwise, the democratic and constitutional principle of ministerial responsibility will be lost. So that's one area that obviously we focused on. He also did say that ministers must be able to give direct critical feedback on briefings and submissions to senior officials in order to set the standards and drive the reform the public expect of us. Of course, this must be done within reasonable bounds, and Mr. Tousi concluded that I had not once in 4.5 years sworn or shouted at anybody, let alone thrown anything or otherwise physically intimidated anyone, nor intentionally sought to belittle anyone. I am genuinely sorry for any unintended stress or offense that any officials felt as a result of the pace, standards, and challenge that I brought to the Ministry of Justice. That is, however, what the public expect of ministers working on their behalf. Now, that's the key point, because I've been critical of Dominic Raab because of his performance, but obviously it's because the people around him in these departments didn't really help. I'm not really completely on the side of him when it comes to political ideologies either, but at the same time, I get it. Considering that's this so-called inquiry, even the so-called inquiry came and said the main allegations against him, whether it was to belittle people or aggressively attacking people or physically harming or shouting at them or essentially throwing things around, none of that happened. Yet at the same time, they still said, well, he was a bossy boss. Really? Why did he resign? That's the issue. So I know that, of course, with the local elections coming up and next year or so, we're going to have the general election. This is the Downing Street basically saying, let's just finish this. You go, we'll throw you under the bus. So by the time the elections come, people forget about the Tory government in general when it comes to these sort of scandals, even though he didn't do anything wrong. Absolutely chaotic. So there's this also in part of the letter at the end. It said, I raised with you a number of improprieties that came to light during the course of this inquiry. They include the systemic leaking and obviously fabricated claims to the media. That's also a big issue. Why is no one doing an investigation into the civil service when it comes to leaking, when it comes to creating fake claims and everything else? But no, everything's fine. The civil servants cannot do wrong. That's the problem. So he actually wrote an article afterwards and did a couple of interviews. They're saying that obviously the people of Britain will pay for this, as in the cost when it comes to civil service, creating these, essentially plots to become obstacles when it comes to the democratic process in Britannia. So that was the main part of it, and there's been a couple of other articles later on that day saying the Tories decided to attack the Raab report, which is not really that surprising. We had a number of MPs, including Paul Bristow from Peterborough, saying we are not a serious country. Joy Morrissey said, sadly, we now live in a country where the definition of bullying includes telling someone to do their job, where the slightest upset or annoyance is indulged with endless reports and inquiries, where whining, taking offense, and narcissistic victimhood have become the defining characteristics of our times, and as the uncomplaining and silent majority look on in disbelief. Even Nadine Dorries said, to add context to what I've already said today, the least desirable qualities in any politician are disloyalty, weakness, self-preservation, and a lack of principle. Robert Goodwill said that I'm very sad for Dom because he always comes across to me as a really genuine, decent guy who is determined to get things done. And if you're determined to get things done, maybe you're less than sympathetic to people who maybe don't share that determination. That is exactly a very, very good point to make. Craig McKinley from South Thanet said, I really do worry that if this is the new approach, a scalp of the Conservative minister by various civil servants, I think is quite a dangerous precedent, if I'm honest. Philip Davis of GB News said, I wonder whether or not this could lead to a spate of other complaints going in about other ministers, because I suspect that if the threshold has been set so low, there will be other examples out there as well. That's a very, very interesting point, because nobody is going to be a difficult target at this point because of this report. Ben Bradley also said, in future, if you disagree with the minister, just stick a complaint in and get rid of him. This is the state of the country. Who is more powerful right now? Is it the voters? Is it the MPs? Or is it the unelected bureaucrats, our civil service? Yes, it's the last one. And this is an absolute, very dangerous precedent that these guys have set. But we're going to continue to keep, everybody in power to account, from backbenchers and ministers to civil servants and all the quangos and all the BBCs and all the others. Anyway, let me know what you think of this story. I'm Mahyar, Tousi, and we are the media.